One, two, three. Alright guys, so in this video we're going back to Balboa Park. If you recognize some of the locations, that's because this was actually the place we went to in my very first vlog with Isaiah.
This is what Nick envisioned with his photography dream.
Yeah. This time I wanted to try shooting it at night though. So when I packed my bag before we headed out, I made sure to bring my Canon FTP QL, the big SLR. There was Kodak Gold 200 in this. And then I also brought the new nifty point and shoot, my Nikon Light Touch Zoom 140 ED. There will be a full-fledged review of this camera in the coming weeks probably. I just really wanted to learn all the ins and outs of this camera and see how it handled night shooting and, you know, certain lights and whatnot. So I really wanted to get a good grasp of what this camera could do before I release an actual review of it. But in this camera for this video was the Fujicolor C200. I didn't get a whole lot of video done. While I was there, I did get some photos done, but not a whole lot of video just because, once again, it was just me out there. And I had a lot of equipment. Obviously, being that it was at night, I brought my tripod with me, and I kind of had to carry that around as I was walking around at night. And so, anyways, I don't want to talk too much. Here's the video. Alright guys, as I was saying, I was out there by myself, so I didn't have anyone to shoot with actually, and so I guess I had shot in like the first half of the night, but the rest of the night I basically was walking around with the point and shoot and my SLR, shooting basically side-by-side comparisons as to how the actual cameras and the films handle the same exact settings. So here are some of those photos right here. After looking at some of the final products, though, of the photos that I had gotten, I definitely love shooting with a point and shoot. And if I can be honest, I hate that I love shooting with the point and shoot just because I feel like I'm not able to take as much credit for the results that come out of this kind of camera, especially with a film like Fujicolor C200. I mean, I got 3 rolls of that in a pack for $12. Meanwhile, I spent probably $12 for 1 roll of the Kodak Gold 200 that was in the SLR here. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was shooting on this. Obviously, everything is manual with this camera. I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything. Everything you have to make sure you get like just correctly. Otherwise, usually the entire shot is kind of blown out. And so, being that I was shooting at night, I wanted to shoot with the aperture wide open with this camera because it seems to make sources of light a little bit more bulb-esque as opposed to sort of diffracted, and you get a lot of like different lens flares from sources of lights when you're shooting at like, say, maybe like an f point, or like an f11 up to like, you know, what does this go up to, like a 16, something along those lines. And you'll notice in some of the photos as well that maybe some of the street lights, there are rays basically diffracting out of the source of light, and that is because I was shooting at a much more closed f-stop, and so that was also because I wanted to go for the long exposure feeling. So I made sure to crank the shutter speed down all the way down to like a second, around probably usually a second or maybe like half of a second. And so by doing that, that's letting a lot of light into the sensor and onto the film. So you do want to close up that aperture a little bit more than you usually would, say, if you were shooting at like a 60th of a second or 250th of a second, whatever it is. You can shoot a little bit more wide open with that. So I just shot at box speed, so it was at ISO 200. So that is relatively low as well. It would be kind of like a darker daytime film. But regardless, I wasn't super stoked with the results that came out of both this camera and I think the film as well. This wasn't the first time I'd shot with Kodak Gold. I just think that maybe shooting at night it wasn't the best. And obviously there's going to be different films that would be better for shooting at night versus shooting during the daytime. And obviously Portra 400 is one of those that I guess would be kind of versatile. But I've always been a big fan of Portra 400 on sort of like a bright and sunny day. It all depends, but I wasn't super stoked with the products that came out of this camera or this film that I was shooting on. This, however, as you can see, the shoe for the tripod that I was shooting on is actually still on this camera because I just recently took a trip up to LA a couple days ago to go and get some shots, and basically this was my just end-all be-all camera. This is what I was walking around with and shooting with just because it's easy, it's light, again, it's very sort of fit in your pocket. You can shoot from the hip with it. It's very just sort of quick, pull it out, take a photo. As opposed to this, once again, you really have to plan your shots when shooting with this kind of camera. And during the day, I did shoot with this a little bit. You guys will see more of that in the next, I guess, couple videos here when I release the video of while I was shooting in LA. But anyways, final statement, basically this camera, the one that I got for $5, the Nikon Light Touch 140 ED with one of the cheapest films that I've ever come across, Fujicolor C200, ended up producing way stronger results in my opinion than say shooting on a $12 roll of film and what would be considered a professional film camera.